In June 1944, an entire French village was wiped out in one of the most shocking massacres of World War II. But what happened to the Nazi officers who ordered the burning of Oradour-sur-Glane? If you value documented World War II history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. Now back to the story. In a single day, lives were extinguished and a village erased from memory. Oradour-sur-Glane, a quiet village in central France, became the stage for one of the most horrific massacres of World War II. On June 10, 1944, officers and soldiers of the SS division swept into the town under orders that blended military reprisal with terror. Men, women, and children alike were corralled into barns, churches, and open squares. Fear and confusion spread instantly. The familiar streets and homes became traps, turning the ordinary village into a scene of unimaginable horror. For the audience, the immediacy of this moment evokes shock, empathy, and a visceral sense of suspense, compelling them to understand both the human and historical weight of these events. Eyewitness accounts describe the calculated efficiency of the perpetrators. Families were separated, men lined up in fields, and women and children confined in the church, often with no chance to flee. Flames and gunfire engulfed buildings, while screams and chaos filled the air. The stark juxtaposition of normal life and instantaneous destruction illustrates the brutality of unchecked authority. Viewers are drawn into the narrative, imagining the terror, confusion, and desperation of those caught in the maelstrom. The immediate aftermath left a landscape of destruction and silence. Houses lay in ruins, barns burned to the ground, and charred remnants of personal belongings were scattered across the streets. Survivors, if any managed to hide, emerged to witness the extent of the devastation. Neighbors and loved ones gone, familiar landmarks turned to ash. This creates suspense and emotional engagement, as the audience experiences the shock and horror through detailed historical reconstruction. Understanding the full scale of human loss, psychologically, the event left deep scars. Survivors carried the trauma of witnessing family members and friends killed, the helplessness of being unable to intervene, and the relentless fear of future violence. Even officers who were not directly involved were affected by the chaos and magnitude of the destruction. For viewers, this enhances empathy and emotional connection, bridging historical facts with human experience. Ultimately, the Oradour-sur-Glane massacre exemplifies the extreme consequences of obedience to orders, ideological indoctrination, and moral collapse in war. The immediate consequences for both the victims and perpetrators set the stage for post-war justice, pursuit, and reckoning. For the audience, suspense, moral reflection, and historical curiosity are maintained, encouraging continued engagement as the story unfolds into the escape, capture, and eventual fates of the officers responsible. Every action, every decision, and every tragedy contributes to a compelling narrative of horror, human resilience, and the pursuit of accountability. Some vanished into the chaos, their crimes hidden beneath the collapsing Reich. The officers responsible for the Oradour-sur-Glane massacre had executed their orders with deadly precision, and now the repercussions loomed. The Allied advance, the collapse of German command, and the rising awareness of war crimes forced these men into flight. The streets of the surrounding countryside and nearby towns became treacherous paths, each step a gamble with capture, exposure, or retribution. For the audience, suspense builds immediately as they follow the cunning and desperate measures employed to escape justice. In the immediate aftermath, officers scattered into small groups or alone, seeking concealment among the ruins of a defeated Germany. Some hid in abandoned buildings, barns, or basements, blending with refugees or displaced civilians. Others adopted temporary disguises, swapping uniforms for civilian clothing and altering appearances to avoid recognition. Historical records reveal that some attempted to bribe or coerce local residents to provide shelter or false documentation. Viewers are drawn into the tension, imagining the combination of fear, strategy, and sheer luck required to remain undetected. The psychological strain was immense. Men accustomed to authority and command now faced uncertainty, fear, and moral reckoning, even if they avoided immediate capture. Diaries and post-war testimonies describe a constant state of hyper-awareness, listening for approaching footsteps, avoiding patrols, and judging which strangers could be trusted. Every decision carried the weight of survival, and every miscalculation could result in imprisonment or execution. The audience engages with both the suspense and the human psychology of guilt, fear, and self-preservation. Some officers moved quickly through the countryside, using rivers, forests, and railways to distance themselves from the massacre site. They avoided major roads, checkpoints, and towns where Allied or French authorities might be present. Others relied on sympathetic contacts, former soldiers, collaborators, or networks established during the occupation to provide guidance, supplies, or shelter. Each act of concealment or evasion required careful calculation, ingenuity, and nerve, keeping viewers on edge and curious about the outcomes of these escape attempts. Ultimately, fleeing responsibility illustrates the duality of human behavior under extreme pressure. Cunning, resourcefulness, and fear intertwine with the shadow of moral and legal consequences. The actions of these officers set the stage for subsequent pursuit, capture, and trial, forming a narrative arc that sustains suspense and engagement. For the audience, this section provides dramatic tension, moral contemplation, and historical immersion, allowing viewers to grasp both the human instinct to survive and the enduring consequences of wartime atrocities. Each hidden step, shadowed alley, and carefully chosen disguise reinforces suspense, engagement, and reflection on the complex interplay of guilt, fear, and justice. Hunted across borders, every trace brought them closer to reckoning. The officers responsible for the Oradour-sur-Glane massacre, once confident in their authority, now found themselves the targets of a meticulous Allied and French investigation. Intelligence reports, survivor testimonies, and witness accounts created a web of leads that slowly closed in on them. For the audience, suspense is immediate, as each revelation brings both anticipation and moral reflection. Who would be caught, and how would justice be delivered? Investigators faced a complex task. The chaos following Germany's defeat meant that many perpetrators had dispersed, fled to neighboring regions, or assumed false identities. French authorities collaborated with Allied intelligence units, cross-referencing names, military records, and testimonies to identify key figures. Photographs, intercepted communications, and survivor recollections were painstakingly compiled to reconstruct movements and pinpoint responsibility. This process of investigation engages viewers intellectually, highlighting the procedural diligence required to bring war criminals to justice. Capture attempts varied. Some officers were apprehended in rural villages, where they believed anonymity would shield them. Others were discovered in urban centers, attempting to blend in among refugees or displaced persons. Local civilians, some of whom had witnessed the massacre firsthand, often played a crucial role in pointing authorities toward hiding places. Each successful capture heightened suspense for the audience, illustrating both the human instinct for justice and the relentless pressure faced by fugitives. The psychological impact on the officers was profound. Those tracked and questioned faced fear, anxiety, and the realization that their actions could no longer be concealed. Diaries and testimonies reveal the strain of evasion, constant vigilance, paranoia, and uncertainty about whom to trust. For viewers, this creates empathy and engagement, emphasizing the human dimensions of accountability and survival under extreme moral and legal scrutiny. Survivor testimonies were central to the investigation. Witnesses recounted specific events, identifying individual perpetrators and detailing the sequence of atrocities. Their accounts were used to cross-verify other evidence, ensuring the reliability of the charges. The narrative tension is sustained for the audience as they witness the painstaking reconstruction of history, balancing procedural rigor with the emotional weight of recollections from those who endured trauma. Ultimately, the arrest and investigation phase underscores the intersection of justice, morality, and human determination. For the audience, suspense, curiosity, and engagement are maintained as each procedural step testimonial account and piece of evidence contributes to a narrative of accountability. The officers, once seemingly untouchable, now face a historical reckoning that combines investigative skill, survivor courage, and the inexorable pursuit of justice. Every discovery, confrontation, and apprehension reinforces both tension and reflection, setting the stage for courtroom drama, sentencing, and the enduring moral and historical legacy of Oradour-sur-Glane. In the courtroom, past horrors weighed heavily as justice sought its mark. The officers responsible for the Oradour-sur-Glane massacre, once cloaked in authority and intimidation, now faced a stark reversal, scrutiny under the eyes of the law. Survivors, witnesses, and investigative reports converged to reconstruct the events of that single devastating day, leaving no detail unexamined. For the audience, the tension is immediate. Every testimony, every piece of evidence could seal a fate that had long seemed avoidable. The trial process itself was meticulous. Officers were charged with murder, complicity in atrocities, and the destruction of the village. Prosecutors presented eyewitness accounts detailing the indiscriminate killings of men, women, and children, while defense attorneys argued mitigating circumstances, obedience to orders, or lack of direct involvement. Each argument highlighted the complexity of post-war justice, balancing legal responsibility against the chaos of wartime command structures. Viewers are engaged intellectually, following the procedures, strategies, and moral dilemmas that define the courtroom drama. Witness testimonies played a critical role. Survivors recounted the moments of terror, the methods employed by the officers, and the aftermath of the destruction. These personal accounts added emotional weight, painting a vivid picture of suffering, fear, and resilience. The audience is drawn into the narrative, feeling the moral gravity of the crimes, the courage of those who testified, and the stakes involved in determining accountability. Suspense arises naturally as each confession, denial, or corroboration alters the perceived outcome. Verdicts and sentences reflected both the severity of the crimes and the nuances of post-war justice. Some officers received long-term imprisonment, others capital punishment, and a few were later granted leniency due to legal technicalities or insufficient evidence. Each decision reverberated beyond the courtroom, affecting survivors, local communities, and historical perception. Viewers are prompted to reflect on justice, its limitations, its moral imperatives, and the difficult balance between punishment and societal reconstruction. The psychological impact on the officers was profound. Some faced despair, resignation, or denial, while others attempted to justify or rationalize their actions. The courtroom became a stage not only for legal proceedings, but for moral reckoning, forcing individuals to confront the consequences of obedience, ideology, and personal choice. For the audience, this provides both emotional engagement and intellectual stimulation, exploring the tension between human psychology and historical accountability. Ultimately, the trial and sentencing phase crystallizes the convergence of morality, law, and memory. For viewers, suspense, reflection, and ethical consideration are sustained, as each sentence serves as both a historical resolution and a reminder of the enduring consequences of atrocities. The courtroom drama captures the gravity of accountability, the complexities of justice, and the lessons for future generations. Every testimony, deliberation, and verdict reinforces the narrative of justice pursued, lives affected, and history documented, leaving the audience with both closure and lingering reflection. The village may be gone, but its story echoes through generations. Oradour-sur-Glane, reduced to ashes by the actions of SS officers, became more than a site of tragedy. It became a symbol of human cruelty, resilience, and the imperative of remembrance. Historians meticulously documented the massacre, piecing together survivor testimonies, photographs, and archival materials to reconstruct what had transpired on that fateful day. Each report, each record, reinforced the scale of destruction and the identities of those responsible. For the audience, this evokes both shock and reflection, emphasizing the enduring importance of historical memory, memorials, and preserved Ruins stand as stark reminders of the atrocity. The village, deliberately left in its destroyed state, allows visitors to witness firsthand the remnants of homes, streets, and churches consumed by fire. Plaques and monuments recount the lives lost and honor the courage of survivors who bore witness. For viewers, this immersive portrayal provides emotional resonance and deepens understanding of the human cost. Reinforcing moral and historical engagement, historical scholarship also plays a pivotal role in shaping collective memory. Researchers have examined the motivations, orders, and organizational structures that enabled the massacre, highlighting both individual accountability and systemic responsibility. These studies explore the psychological and socio-political context of the officers' actions, offering insight into obedience, ideology, and moral collapse. For the audience, this intellectual engagement complements the emotional weight, creating a layered understanding of both perpetrators and victims. The fates of the officers themselves continue to intrigue and inform public discourse. Some were captured and tried, their sentences recorded in legal history, while others evaded justice, living under assumed identities or quietly reintegrating into post-war society. The contrast between accountability and evasion underscores enduring questions of justice, morality, and historical judgment. Audience curiosity is sustained as viewers consider how society responds to crimes of this magnitude, and how memory preserves both the deeds and the lessons of the past. Collective memory also manifests through literature, film, and education. Accounts of Oradour-sur-Glane are taught in schools, featured in documentaries, and analyzed in ethical discussions, ensuring that the lessons of the massacre endure beyond historical texts. This continued engagement invites viewers to reflect on the moral and societal implications of obedience, complicity, and responsibility. The narrative's power lies not only in recounting events, but in prompting ethical contemplation, curiosity, and recognition of human resilience in the face of atrocity. Ultimately, remembering Oradour-sur-Glane connects past and present, victims and perpetrators, tragedy and reflection. For the audience, suspense, emotional engagement, and moral contemplation are maintained as they witness how memory preserves both horror and lesson. The village's ruins, historical records, and commemorations collectively ensure that the story persists, fostering empathy, historical insight, and an enduring commitment to justice. Every detail from personal testimonies to institutional remembrance creates a narrative that is both compelling and ethically resonant, leaving the audience reflective and intellectually engaged. History warns, teaching vigilance, courage, and the price of complicity. The massacre at Oradour-sur-Glane is more than a historical event. It serves as a cautionary tale about the moral responsibilities of individuals, particularly those in positions of authority. The officers who carried out the atrocity were following orders, yet their choices had catastrophic consequences. For the audience, the tension arises from the intersection of obedience and moral accountability, prompting reflection on how similar pressures might manifest in other contexts. Ethical lessons emerge clearly from the events. Blind obedience to authority, ideological indoctrination, and dehumanization of others can lead to unimaginable atrocities. The actions of these officers demonstrate that when individuals surrender personal conscience in favor of orders, the repercussions ripple beyond immediate victims, affecting communities, society, and the historical record. Viewers are engaged emotionally and intellectually, connecting the past to contemporary questions of responsibility, leadership, and morality. The human element underscores these lessons. Survivors' stories, personal accounts, and documented evidence reveal the resilience, courage, and compassion of those who resisted or sought to mitigate harm. Even small acts of defiance or protection stand out against the backdrop of mass violence, highlighting the power and impact of ethical choice. For the audience, this creates admiration, empathy, and curiosity about the human capacity for both good and evil under extreme circumstances. Modern relevance reinforces engagement. In workplaces, governmental institutions, and societal structures, individuals may encounter pressures to comply with unethical instructions or ignore wrongdoing. The Oradour-sur-Glane massacre illustrates the necessity of moral courage, vigilance, and the willingness to act according to conscience, even when facing potential personal or professional consequences. Viewers are invited to draw parallels, evaluating their own decisions and responsibilities in contemporary contexts, which maintains intellectual curiosity and ethical reflection. Finally, the collective memory and continued study of Oradour-sur-Glane ensure that the lessons endure. Memorials, education, and historical scholarship preserve not only the facts of the massacre, but the ethical questions it raises. By engaging with these stories, audiences are prompted to consider broader issues. How do societies prevent the repetition of such atrocities? How do individuals navigate authority, obedience, and conscience? The suspense of moral reflection keeps viewers engaged, allowing them to process both historical and personal implications. Ultimately, the legacy of Oradour-sur-Glane transcends its immediate tragedy. The massacre teaches vigilance, ethical responsibility, and the consequences of complicity. For the audience, suspense, curiosity, and moral engagement persist, leaving a reflective and contemplative impact that resonates beyond the screen. Every lesson, every historical insight, and every ethical reflection ensures that viewers not only understand the past, but consider their role in shaping a more conscientious and accountable future.